In this game, a zombie apocalypse ended the Roman Empire as we know it, and it took me well over 100 days to bring it back, because I'll rebuild the ancient empire from the grounds up, craft the strongest gear and fight off hordes of deadly enemies, battle insane mythological bosses, slowly losing my sanity along the way, and complete every quest the Pantheon of Gods throws at me to become Rome's ultimate protector. This is my 100 days in Romestead. The first thing I did was make my own little character. So welcome Flavius the blue-haired legionary, and the legionary part giving me some proficiency in spear weapon type, but more about this later. Because right after that I appeared in the world, naked and very Roman in a pixelated kind of way. So first thing I did was talk to this ghostly woman, ominously floating above the ground right next to me. She had no idea who she was, but at least I did get a tip on what to do next. But apart from that, I also got warned. Apparently a gigantic owl is lurking about, and defeating it will be my first long-term goal. But first I decided to follow the handy guide that popped up when I spawned. It taught me the art of interacting with items in this world, and that much of the crafting in this game can be done in-world. That meant that I could throw this flint boulder into something hard, turning it into flint shards.
Yeah, okay, to get wood sticks I need to throw objects into trees? Oh, okay.
And while I was messing around with all that, I spotted my first enemy. A wild boar that doesn't bother anyone but me, apparently.
Can I maybe... It's probably a bad idea, but...
Oh my god!
Oh!
Knowing that enemies drop loot, I went on to check out the inventory screen, unsurprisingly spotting the crafting menu at the bottom. So since I had some flint shards and some sticks, I made both the flint pickaxe and the flint axe. And thanks to those tools, now I can gather things like trees or rocks by stabbing them with my spear. They basically boost the material gathering strength of my attacks, which is nice because I don't have to constantly swap between tools. But while smaller trees give sticks, the bigger ones actually drop proper wooden logs, which can be used for all kinds of wooden log activities, like chopping them into planks using the tree stumps as splitting blocks, for example.
What? Okay, wait, I have to put it here? That's cool.
Oh, that is so cool! So now that I had some materials, I crafted a workbench, but also a wooden shield, a bow, and some arrows, which I totally didn't use to Romanize the local creatures. But now I needed to find a spot to put down my workbench, and similarly to Valheim, this will also be the spot where I can actually start building my Roman village, which meant I probably shouldn't settle right next to those huge eggs that clearly belong to a huge owl boss. Yeah, I found the boss arena a bit earlier than anticipated. So instead I went a couple of steps north, Roman Empire all over the local creatures, and I got myself a nice and cozy place to live. After interacting with the workbench, a tutorial popped up explaining the game's construction mechanics.
Okay, that's kinda cool then. I can trade... Okay, someone's trying to... I have perished.
Dying to a crab on day 1 isn't the most embarrassing thing I've ever done, but at least that explains death mechanics. Dying means you drop all unequipped materials from your inventory, so my axes and spears were safe. But it's not too bad, because after you come back to the death spot and deal with the remaining enemies, you get the items back. It really isn't an issue. After that, I used the workbench to build my first building, the town center, which is necessary to start the village off properly. And to build it, I needed to bring 1 rock and 1 log to the construction site, like physically. So I stabbed a lonely rock and brought it to the place, and then cut down a tree to get the logs. And then, just as I was about to build, I got attacked by the first undead.
Oh my god, what are you?
I thought to myself that I should probably get used to that from now on. Knights being of course the most problematic. But now I continued with the building, discovering the mechanics behind it.
Oh, there's like a minigame also to build. There's so many things going on right now.
And with the town center constructed, I'll be able to manage the village and its inhabitants using this handy-dandy overview map. But for now, there really isn't much to manage. The next thing the guidebook deems necessary though is to build an altar. So I fought off some more zombified Roman citizens and started bringing the materials to build it.
There's a lot of fighting, like a lot of fighting right now.
There was indeed a lot of fighting already, and I needed a safe place more than ever. I started building the altar, costing me 3 rocks and a bad back. And after finishing it, I've got another pop-up, this time explaining that I need to recruit citizens, which can be found stranded in the wilds sometimes. And the altar itself seemed to have a lot of mechanics attached to it as well.
Okay, so far I have no idea what altar is for. We have gods here, clearly, that we can probably level up. but I do not know what to do right now, so I'm just gonna avoid this for now. Because we have more things to do, like construct a leather worker building and interact with a food storage.
So I built a leather worker's house and a food storage right next to it, both deemed necessary by the early game guide. I had to bring all the materials to build them manually too, just like before, only now there was quite a bit more to carry. And all of this was happening while I was actively battling local enemies, which clearly didn't appreciate me as a neighbor.
I just killed someone, I don't know.
After all the materials were delivered, I began the construction, and just like that I had built my first actually Roman-looking structure.
And now the food storage thing. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, so we are all set up, I guess.
The leather worker's hut wasn't working, because I had no one in my town to man it just yet, and the food storage just looked kind of depressing and empty. But since it's used to feed my future villagers, I donated 1 cabbage for a good cause. Someone's gonna praise the gods when they find it. After that, I decided to build one more thing. An insula. It's a house for the jobless, holding up to 3 villagers. So obviously I had to build one if I wanted to start rebuilding the fallen empire. But that's also when I realized that this very obvious cart that was here all along is actually a thing, and not part of the unusable game clutter. And it can be used in a very satisfying way to carry 4 separate materials.
That is so much nicer. Oh my god, I knew that this is probably something interactable, but still.
That solves the material transportation issue. I don't have to bring everything one by hand. So building the insula was much smoother than I expected. After finishing it, I actually have some space for people to move in now. I have become the Roman landlord. But before moving forward, I had to survive the night. And nights are very special and consist of many fun Roman activities, like zombies absolutely walking over the village like they own the place. I wouldn't call that night survived, but it does give me a reason to make my town well defended and organized sooner rather than later.
Oh my god. Okay, I am struggling at night here. We're gonna have to do something about this rather quick. Well, I mean, okay.
I decided the best course of action is to go into the wilds and start looking for some villagers to recruit into my town first. And it didn't take long, actually. A couple of seconds of going west and I already met my first candidate. And recruiting her officially finished the tutorial part of the game. So while I have my first villager, I am also pretty much on my own now. So I came back to the town. And sure enough, here she was. So I tried to welcome her by showering her with gifts.
I have a gift for you. I do? You want some raw meat? She hates this. What do you mean? You can just... Okay, maybe... What do you like then? Do you want a wood plank? I hate this. She's really hard to please.
She clearly didn't like my raw meat and a wooden plank, but it is all good. Because now, as a punishment, I used the town hall to send her to work as a leather worker by assigning her to the building. And she better Leathers Maximus, or she gets Deletus back into the wilds. Thankfully for her, she does seem to be pretty useful already, providing some cool services, especially all the crafting options that are now enabled to me to get some early gear. And turns out I need much more leather to craft pretty much anything. So I decided to go for a little hunt, mixed in with some adventuring and exploration. I didn't know what to expect, so my motto was Veni Vidi and possibly Vici if I'm feeling frisky. Firstly, I managed to somehow kill a deer using my low-tier bow. That dropped a bunch of leather off the rip, but then I immediately got distracted by the local coal deposits, and knowing that I surely will need it sooner or later, I spent some time grabbing it. After that little coal break, I continued with the hunt, terrorizing the local fauna and spreading the very early democracy. While I was doing so, I found some ruins, from which I not only got proper food for my villagers, but also got into a fight with a rat. I am in desperate need of better gear. Thankfully, as the day was about to end, I spotted one more foe I wanted the leather from, a bear. So while dying in a 1v1 duel with a rat might seem embarrassing, I did somehow manage to kill the bear without the slightest problems.
Okay, maybe that's gonna do it, maybe. I actually managed.
But that sealed the deal. The bear dropped more than enough leather for me to be able to order myself the first proper armor. And apparently it takes a moment for the worker to actually produce it, whether I threaten with banishment or not. So since I had a moment, I decided to look into food processing. After all this hunting, I was quite low on health, so I needed something to munch on to regain strength. So I crafted a campfire, correctly assuming that's where the cooking is usually done.
Okay, that's so much much better. I can just cook stuff. And also craft a torch so I can actually see things. It doesn't seem to be running out, I think.
So yeah, not only do I have some food to my name now, but also a light source.
Oh no, they're coming. They are coming already. Oh my god, there's so many of them too. I just realized I've not been using the shield, like, at all.
Realizing that the undead will keep coming indefinitely during nighttime, I decided to finally build myself a personal shelter too. Having a nice cozy spot to hide from the zombies and sleep through the night is exactly what I needed, especially that decoration is surprisingly in-depth, but more about that later.
What's inside? Cozy.
It may be cold, empty, and not very useful for now. And that's about it. That's also when I noticed that villagers will come to see all the new buildings I construct, to check out what's new in the town, which is a nice detail.
Oh, she's admiring my house. Yeah, I would too, I just wouldn't go inside.
So to keep things going smoothly, I decided to build a lumber yard, so a building where the villager will produce wooden logs for me passively. I had to choose a spot with a couple of trees around it, since that boosts wood production. For some reason. So now, some resource gathering and transportation. The wooden cart makes this whole operation so much easier, and it looks really cool too.
That is so cool. I don't know, I love this. I love this interaction, it's so cool. Maybe later it's gonna get like kinda but for now it's pretty cool.
And after a bunch of rhythmic hammer smacks, the building was up. Now all I need was one more villager to operate it. But that's when I got too sidetracked to care, since I realized you can build the most Roman thing ever. Roads. So of course I got preoccupied ancient roaming all over the place building roads.
First of all, ow.
And after a moment I had a nice dirt road going through my village that increased my movement speed ever so slightly. And building so much stuff actually paid off in character skills too, since I got a perk point to spend on one of many passive bonuses. I went with the axe improvement first, since incremental boosts to resource gathering are always welcome early. But enough time has passed now and my leather armor has been ready for some time, waiting for me at the leather worker's hut.
Oh, she finished doing the thing.
So now, while it is not much, I finally wasn't running in just a Roman tunic. And having that done, slightly better protected, I ventured out to look for more people to recruit. I needed to man all my new buildings. But apart from some animals for leather and a guy I recruited, I also found this, another cart. And to my surprise, this is a huge upgrade, because you can actually connect carts, making them into an even more powerful material transportation tool.
Oh, you can have two carts at once. Oh, that makes it so much easier. I'm gonna have like 8 things that I can carry at the same time.
It is indeed going to be pretty helpful. But for now I continued with my exploration of the surrounding areas. And apart from fighting the same enemies, I actually found some new interesting ones too.
God damn, okay.
I was preoccupied with nightly survival until I stumbled upon this structure, and while initially hesitant, I decided to go in anyway. It turned out to be a small dungeon, my first one ever. Inside I found some undead enemies, but also some spawners that seemed to be spitting them out in waves.
I wonder if at the end there's going to be maybe like a villager or something.
And while there was no villagers at the end of the dungeon, there was a nice little loot chest, which dropped me a piece of armor, boosting my throwing weapon skills. And aside from that, an item called Spoils of War that can be sacrificed in the altar. And that's a new mechanic I wanted to try out and see what it does. But for now I desecrated the dead by looting the entire tomb and gathering some coins.
Frick the dead, they don't need this stuff anymore.
And went on my merry way to further search for villagers. Thankfully it didn't take long, since after entering this ominous looking forest biome, I immediately spotted a recruitable Roman woman. A raw woman. So now I came back to my town and assigned another worker, this time to the logging camp. And because I already had 3 people living here, I decided it's time to get a renewable source of food for my town. That meant making some proper farm plots and starting to figure out how to farm the proper Roman way.
Oh, they're like running away. Help me, woman. Ah.
The woman did not help me. I am a single workhorse in this village, it seems. But after a moment I had all the farming plots constructed, so I got to planting some wheat seeds I must have picked up while traveling.
Oh, this is like Stardew Valley type thing. all very much. Okay, that's nice. Okay.
I assumed it's not entirely like Stardew Valley, so I did not even think about watering the crops. I will come back to it later because it is very much a thing. All because now I got preoccupied with pure excitement that the woodcutter actually visibly produces logs.
Oh, I think the woodcutter just generates logs, just like here. You can just take them. Oh, that is so cool.
And since it was already getting dark and I had enough zombies for now, I decided to pay a visit to the leather hut and purchase a sleeping bag. But I also felt frisky, so I got myself a nice boar rug from the furniture tab. This way I finally could start decorating my own house. It's still not much, but at least now I can sleep without fighting for my life every night. And in the morning I finally used the spoils of war I found in the dungeon to sacrifice it in the altar. And that unlocked Mars, the first of the gods I can now speak to apparently. He can provide me with some valuable passive bonuses if I level up his worship level, but more about that later, because the altar also has a tab for quests. And the only active one I have right now is to kill that giant owl that threatens the peace in the plains. So this particular biome. The prospect of finishing the quest is even more promising given that the rewards unlock some more interesting buildings. But I also realized that I can sacrifice my least favorite citizens. I'm looking at you, leatherworker Sayolina, if that's even your real name. Soon after that I realized something crucial. While I was messing around with the altar, the rain watered some of my crops, revealing that crop watering is indeed a thing. So I constructed myself a bucket, assuming that's how you make the crops wet.
Okay, so I'm just gonna carry it like this. Okay, to my plants. Oh, that is so cool.
It was indeed very cool. This game really is a Roman equivalent to Stardew Valley, just with more zombies. And the crops now sufficiently watered do actually grow in real time. And since I am all about that wheat farming lifestyle now, I decided to make the next logical step: a mill. My crops were still far from grown, but I did have some local wild wheat needing processing. At that point I realized you have to manually run around the mill to grind it up, which I found pretty amusing. But the most important part is now I was getting flour, which I could now use on the campfire to turn it into bread, which is a pretty valuable food source for both my villagers and me. And thanks to my efforts, this village finally has some food backlog, pretty varied for now too.
My farm is getting raided. Okay, I really have to invest in like defenses and stuff.
That is very true. Being constantly vulnerable to random monsters strolling in started to get out of hand. So I spent the night building an outline of my palisade, a wooden wall around the town. And while it definitely is a lot of work, historically no one has ever crossed a wooden wall before, so I felt pretty confident in the idea. So I spent the next day or so gathering materials and transporting them to the wall, constructing the palisade one segment at a time. The double cart helped a lot too.
There's much more wood in this forest biome, which I guess is obvious, but...
And after a day of work, I finally had my impenetrable defenses up and fully functional.
You can't get in, you wanna get in, but you can, mister. Oh.
After all that, I noticed my farm was fully grown, so I spent some time tending to it and making even more flour. A renewable source of food is a godsend, but I did feel the need to automate it sooner or later if possible. I did not know it at the time, but I would find a way sooner or later. But for now, I came back to the altar and for some reason sacrificed a rare Pilum quiver. And that action unlocked Diana, goddess of the hunt, and she will not give me that quiver back. And that proves two things. Firstly, that I can sacrifice whatever item I want and get XP with the corresponding god. And two, that gods are indeed very important to progression. Because I almost immediately bought 2 perks from Diana's skill tree, giving me the knowledge to craft a tent and have a nice little camp out in the woods whenever I want. But also plus 15% to seeds from wild crops. So now to honor the goddess of the hunt, I decided to craft myself not only the new tent, but also a bunch of Pilums, which are a throwing weapon dealing massive damage that will come in useful tomorrow. I also crafted a bunch of arrows too for my bow, and while I was at it, I progressed the skill tree, getting bonuses to mining and building, which is much less relevant, but it happened. I needed to be at my peak strength for what's to come next. So I equipped the weakest Pilum quiver I could find, since I sacrificed the better one yesterday on accident, and ventured forth into the boss fight, pissing off the biggest bird around by scrambling its children.
Okay.
Great, I started a fight with a voice crack. The bird landed on my head, immediately dealing the first blow physically. And then it charged forward, destroying a lot of my painfully built walls, dealing damage mentally.
Oh, she broke so much of my wall.
The attacks of the owl were pretty telegraphed, and I usually had more than enough time to dodge out of the way, constantly throwing spears and dealing decent damage. But about halfway through the fight, when the second phase kicked in, the owl started using lightning attacks, dealing much more serious damage.
I don't have pillow anymore. Cooked meat? Ugh. She's not exactly hard to deal with.
Yeah, the first boss of the game did not prove to be super difficult, then it just freaking exploded. Half of my city walls are completely trampled, but at least I got some proper loot this time, including some cool boots made out of the owl's feathers. I sulked around the walls for a bit, trying to mend what's left of them first, and then immediately sacrificed the owl's eye on the altar, not only to push the story quest forward, but also to unlock the new buildings locked behind it, like the logistics tent for production automation, materials storage for storing materials, but also a blacksmith and a carpenter building. And completing that quest unlocked all of them, plus it also initiated 4 more quests. 2 main ones from Minerva, so the floating woman from the beginning apparently, and 2 side quests from the other gods, both asking me to bring very specific dungeon related items. But that was only the beginning. Unlocking the new buildings opened the doors for some more crucial town improvements, so I started with repairing the walls over the next night, because zombies are a pain to deal with. And when that was done, I decided to build the newly unlocked materials storage. And that actually required a completely brand new material, clay. It's pretty easy to find it since it's super orangey and is literally everywhere, especially around water sources. So I scooped up some of it into a bucket. Then I brought all the rest of the materials, smacked my hammer once or twice, and here we go. A place to store all the materials was ready. I could just chuck various materials like stone and wood into it, and they would be used in the future automation and production by many different buildings. This would turn out to be the heart of the town in the future. But since I needed more villagers for the smithy and the carpenter's hut, I decided to go out into the wilds to look for them. And to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, also hit one of the dungeons containing side quest items, the Moonstring, in the decaying grotto. And while I was preparing for departure, I noticed that killing the owl actually unlocked a new, unique armor set. I had the materials for it, but my leather woman was actually a level too low to craft it. Turns out villagers have levels, and the more stuff they do, the better they get at their job. So to boost her level, I made her work on some cured hides to gain some experience, but also gave her pretty feather from the owl as a gift. That boosted her happiness by 1, which is tied to efficiency and XP gains. Turns out NPCs have a lot of stats that affect each other. So now, with stuff getting done without me, I was able to leave and head straight for the grotto and the side quest item. And on my way I managed to find the first copper ore I've ever seen, right next to this campsite here. And as it turns out, copper ore, similarly to rocks, is a heavy material only transportable by carts, so I would have to come back here and pick it up at some point. Right after that I managed to find a ruin containing the dungeon with the Moonstring item, so I had to first clear it out of the local boars and angry bushes. Unfortunately, when I got too low on HP, I managed to cancel out the food eating animation, and because I didn't properly heal myself, I got clapped. But after I came back and picked up all my dignity and items, I managed to find a villager in one of the ruined buildings, recruiting him immediately. And the next order of business was to go down into the grotto itself. It wasn't anything too complicated. I had to defeat a bunch of undead and take care of their spawners, but also figure out a small puzzle consisting of putting a rock on a pressure plate to open the next dungeon segment. Here I found another villager ready to be recruited, this one in particular being both depressed and efficient, must be an ancient programmer. After that I pulled the lever, which opened the reward segment of the dungeon. Here in the chest I found the Moonstring for the quest, but also some more goodies, like this grappling hook, making it possible to grab things that are seemingly out of reach. After that I started making my way home by running away from a horde of zombies.
I am being shit. Oh my god, he got absolutely demolished here.
On my way I found yet another cart, so of course I took it with me to test out the thing everyone is wondering right now. So the next morning I tried attaching the 3rd cart to the cart snake to see if ancient Roman train was possible.
Oh my god, you can. You can have 3 cards, you can have a Roman train.
I guess that makes it clear. Card snakes are historically accurate and that technology made ancient Rome what it was. That and the grappling hooks which were clearly used in farming. I approached the altar and sacrificed the moonstrain. That finished up the quest from Diana and unlocked another building, the well. So without wasting any time, I quickly built one right above my farm, which clearly impressed the locals.
Oh, they just like appreciate what I just did for them. And now they're gone. Okay. They got really excited for a split second there.
And now I was able to quickly and efficiently water my crops without having to run to the nearest lake for water every time. Apart from that, my leather woman finally hit level 2, so I ordered myself a nice set of feathered armor. Now I had to wait for it to get done, so I started more village expansions. This time I built the blacksmith right next to the south entrance, and after some material transportation and hammering, I had a proper blacksmith building. And inside, of course, we had a whole plethora of new tools, weapons and armor to make from various materials. And in traditional survival game fashion, first in line being copper. Next I decided to build a carpenter, and this building in particular had to be somewhat close to the materials storage. So I built it on the east side of the village, and the carpenter of choice was the depressed Pomponius, because woodworking is very relaxing, and the carpenter services were mostly utility related. So first things first, I ordered a bunch of road improvements from him.
Oh, this is so much better too, and so much faster. Holy.
So yes, my inner and outer Roman took over and I started obsessing over building roads for some reason. But at least after some work I managed to put down quite a bit of them, making the town traversal somewhat more efficient. Not to mention, stone roads just look more civilized. But that's also when I noticed a quest marker over one of my villagers' heads. And turns out that Petronius wants an apricot. I did not have any apricots, but do not worry, sooner or later his request will be fulfilled. I did find an abandoned chest in one of the bushes in the town though, so I put it in my home as the first personal chest for some storage space. But apart from that, I kept making more roads and buildings. I took the expansion of my village very seriously. And without knowing it, I started building one of the most important buildings in this town, the logistics stand. This was the absolute main automation building, making it possible to send materials from the main city storage to any production building, and the output of production buildings back to the storage, or anywhere else really.
Okay, and now, yeah, it just transported the wooden log here. I guess I'm gonna set it up in such a way so that everything just goes into the material storage. I think that makes the most amount of sense, and then I'm just gonna be able to open the chest and everything is there, right?
Even my already finished feathered armor produced by the leather woman was quickly put into the storage chest automatically. So having that set up and clad in feathers, I felt the need to upgrade my weapons too. After all, I am still rocking this flint gear for poor Romans. So I took my tricart, or as any Roman would say, the III cart, and went out in search of some copper nodes, only to come back a split second later because apparently a raid is headed right for my village. So with no prior knowledge as to how hard it would be, I decided to over-prepare by building some stationary catapults as defenses.
Ooh, that is cool.
It was indeed pretty cool, but they were not automatic, and needed my manual control to be useful, so having more than one was actually kind of pointless. And then the raid began. And while I expected a massive wave of zombies, it actually was a raid consisting mostly of the weakest enemies in the game, the potmen.
Ooh, that was a good hit.
So they did not prove to be a challenge for my single unit Roman legion and a bunch of decorative catapults.
Okay, I think I won. I was expecting undead, actually.
But apart from that, I finally noticed a big flaw in my wall, explaining how the potman actually managed to get in without breaking any of walls. I actually just had a hole in my walls all along, due to shoddy building practices from my side. And the following day I finally left my city in search of copper, without any raids stopping me this time. And finding and mining copper is not really a problem in itself. The operation just requires carts for transportation to be worthwhile. And since this was mostly a copper expedition, of course the gods made me find a couple of villagers pretty much no problem. When I look for them, they are nowhere to be found, but when I focus on something else, all of a sudden they pop up like daisies.
Are you serious?
And I really mean it, since I reached max villagers pretty easily, meaning I will have to look into building more village houses. to have more space. But other than that, filling up my carts with copper was quite easy, especially in the forest biome. And when I got back home, I had to figure out how to smelt all of this. So I looked up how to do it in the in-game guide. And unsurprisingly, it is all done in-world. You throw ore and some fuel into the smelter in the blacksmith building, and it does the thing.
That is actually super satisfying, I don't know.
So, using my newly acquired copper bars, I ordered my new axe, pickaxe, shield, and this time a sword instead of a spear to switch things up a bit. And soon after that, I had all my upgrades equipped. Goodbye Flint, welcome the Copper Age. I spent most of the night testing out my new equipment, and while the sword did not have any special abilities like the charged stab attack of a spear, it did let me move while attacking, making it easier to stay on top of the enemies. Not to mention, it did seem quite a bit faster too. Cannot say the same about the copper armor though. It had weaker stats than my feathered one, so I just kind of skipped it. But I did make a cauldron and a bunch of other processed materials so that my blacksmith gains a bit of experience for the future. And apart from that, I bought 1 or 2 decorative items. I'm still in the process of making my somewhat empty house feel more lived in. After a minute or two, I had the cauldron ready. I put it in my house and apparently it is mostly used to upgrade pre-existing health potions. Well, because you cannot craft them from scratch. You find health potions only in dungeons. Well, anyway, having all that done, I opted for some more altar quest action. Minerva had a quest about unlocking a new god, so I decided to sacrifice some random items to unlock someone new and finish that one quick. And sacrificing my nuts unlocked Ceres, the goddess of agriculture. Given that more villagers mean I need more food production, her passive unlocks were very welcome, like faster milling or plus 10% to crop harvests, apart from the glory of finishing the Unlock a God quest. Next, I decided to focus on 2 side quests, starting from the one from Ceres, since after unlocking her, she immediately had some stuff for me to do. So I offered 20 wheat to quickly complete that one, unlocking a pretty crucial building, a farmstead. And the next one, again from Ceres, was to deliver her some special ingredients: olives, pine nuts and cabbage. So I ran around the plains like a madman and gathered all the pine nuts and olives I could find. Cabbage was slightly more problematic to find though, and it did push me into decimating a whole population of a local indigenous village. I did manage to get the cabbage seeds though. In the village I noticed another dungeon, and since I was already here I decided to complete it, without realizing that this place was connected to the side quest from Vulcan. The dungeon was pretty straightforward, with more innocents to slay and some poisonous darts to avoid, which made me feel like I'm at least twice my age reaction time wise. Ow. And at the end I found a crystallized blood item for Vulcan side quest. But apart from that, some recipes for some wolf-inspired armors. But also this guy, which unfortunately will stay here forever since I still forgot to build new houses for villagers. Sorry man, my village is full. I came back home and offered up the crystallized blood to Vulcan, unlocking a clay pit building. It will come in useful later. And another thing is, it turns out that I had cabbage seeds at home this whole time, so mowing down those green guys in their own village was totally unnecessary. Next up, I donated some random items again, and unlocked Mercury. And the side quest he immediately gave me can unlock me a market. And the bonus perks he has in store for me are all mostly set up around movement speed, trade and magic. And apart from that, this guy will actually save this entire playthrough when the time comes. He is much more useful than he seems. And the next morning I tended to the farm. I wanted to speed up the wheat growth to make some space for cabbages ASAP, but also I finally started the construction of the farmstead building to finally make food production at least partially automated. So I put it right beyond the walls and out of curiosity set up the carpenter to indefinitely help with construction. Apparently the carpenter can bring materials to the construction sites I make and build them himself, but he didn't seem to want to do that just yet for some reason.
Oh my god, he blimped. He blipped.
I assumed that the farmstead was just slightly too far, so I decided to, as per usual, build it with my own hands. And while I was carrying some materials, some random guy ran straight into me, dropping a declaration of war. I ignored that fact and I continued like nothing happened. And here we go, the first farmstead in Romestead. And the town itself was starting to finally look like something serious too. So now I started expanding even more. I decided to build a bunch of villager houses, but I also removed some of the walls, for some reason. And while I was hyper-focused on making my town make sense, I noticed that the carpenter is actually carrying materials all of a sudden. I didn't actually understand why he's doing this now, but he was building stuff, and I wasn't complaining. Any help is welcome.
Okay, he built it. I really don't get why, though, he was ignoring this one for a very long time.
So now that I am not the only person doing things, I finally cleared out the farm and planted some cabbage seeds, because any longer and I would totally forget to do it ever. Then I put one of my villagers to work as a farmer. Funny enough, he's also depressed, just like the carpenter. And when I spoke to him in his new workplace, he said that he has issues tending to the crops. Yeah, probably because he doesn't have any crops to tend to. So I built a bunch of plots around the building. And by built, I mean leisurely waited for the carpenter to do it while I focused on rebuilding the walls I destroyed, but also some more roads. There's never enough roads. Especially when I don't even have to lift a finger to do it now. It might or might not get into my head. Hopefully I'm not gonna go too Roman. And just to spice things up, I finally realized that decorations can also be placed outside, in the town, not only inside my own house. Meaning that all the walls and pillars I must have destroyed while fighting zombies in dungeons can now be used as decorations in the whole city, adding to that cool Roman marble vibe.
There's like so much potential in like how you can decorate, dude.
And just as I was finished with playing around with decorations, the plots around the farmstead were also pretty much ready. So I planted whatever I could and left the rest to the farmer, who is now actually working, according to this little bar filling up over and over again. So naturally I also built a well right next to the farmstead. I had no idea if the farmer will use it or not, but readily available water is necessary in our Roman town anyway. After that, just in time, my cabbages finally grew. So I offered them on the altar alongside some pine nuts and olives to finish up Ceres's quest, which unlocks a bakery. So I put it right next to the farm for some reason. It's like putting McDonald's next to a cow factory or something. Over the night I managed to bring all the materials and build it with no problems. It's even pretty cozy inside. And the baker of choice was Aquila. Similarly to the carpenter and the farmer, also a depressed man. I set up automation in such a way that the bakery takes wheat from the farm and then does nothing with it, because to bake bread we need flour. And I could not script it better myself, because the next quest from Ceres actually unlocks a water mill, an automation building for milling and making flour continuously and forever. The only problem is that the quest requires me to make 3 very specific recipes, and for them I need to run around and look for ingredients. So for the next couple of minutes I was running around and picking up random mushrooms from the forest biome, and I even managed to hit a small dungeon with some puzzles in it. This particular one taught me that keys are very heavy and to open locked doors you need to throw the key at them. Pretty cool. But apart from that I also found an uncommon spear. The constant jumping with the sword was making me slightly dizzy, and the spear is much smoother to fight with anyway. I came back home and made the requested recipes, then milled some flour and made bread, which is also required, and then offered it to Ceres on the altar, finishing the quest and unlocking the water mill. In the process I also unlocked a new god, Venus, but for some reason I just didn't notice. So for now, let's pretend she's still locked. Thanks. And as expected, the water mill needs to be built next to water, so I placed it on the west side of my town, beyond the walls on this little pond here. And after putting some wheat inside of the mill, I finally had automated the flour production too. Okay, so I have a fully automated mill that's going to be milling things and whatever, right? So that's great. So now, using the logistics stand, I am sending wheat to the mill and flour from the mill to bakery, where it turns into bread sent straight into the food storage. Citizens technically don't die from hunger, but they do stop working. So at least that's not a worry anymore. So now that I had the food situation under control, I decided to go out for an expedition. Main idea, apart from dungeons and villager recruiting, was to find the next biome where I can build my second town and progress the game further. I started going north, but that was quickly met with mostly disappointment. I did find a weird looking stripe of dead ground that seemed to spawn some sort of skeletons that were quite a bit more powerful than I was comfortable with. Remember that location because it will be important later. But apart from that, I also hit one regular dungeon, with some pressure plate puzzles that were actually quite fun.
I like the puzzles in those. Oh god.
But I also visited one of those special dungeons with this ominous looking icon on the map, where I had to clear consecutive floors of all the enemies before progressing lower and lower.
Oh no, this guy is a... Taste my Huh?
The last floor was the rewards floor, consisting of a villager who somehow managed to stumble his way down here, and a treasure chest with some cool loot. Still, I did not find any signs of the desert biome, so I decided to make my way down the world spawn, and do the most obvious thing ever. start going down this pre-built road that just so happens was here all along. And pretty much immediately I found some interesting stuff, like this statue with inscription depicting an open fire on the ground. So I correctly assumed that this is just a very on-the-nose riddle, and crafted a campfire right in front of it. And that revealed the location of the Champion of Minerva on the map. Or at least it would have if I didn't already visit it. Yeah, as it turns out, it just marked the location of the owl boss, which I already visited. And while this was not very helpful, it did introduce me to the mechanics of guide statues. And each boss in each biome has their own, guiding the player to the unique boss locations. So now I followed the road further south, finding even more wacky things on my way.
Oh damn. This guy has negative efficiency, so I kinda don't want him. What about this guy? This guy is also negative efficiency, but he has a higher base efficiency, so this guy's fine.
Luckily, after a minute or so of just sprinting, I finally found the entrance to the next biome of the game. Welcome to the desert. And as expected, even getting through the gates was not easy.
No, I'm actually having a lot of issues here. I didn't expect it. Enjoy. Ballista.
I managed to get in by running past most of the enemies, but since the night caught me off guard, I was kind of stuck here, fighting my way through hordes of skeletons that did not only hit hard, but also slowed you down by throwing an undodgeable projectile at you. That's when I realized that I really don't have to be here, and it's all just a choice, so I left. I decided to get slightly stronger before heading out into the desert properly, but at least now I know where it is. Keeping all my loot intact is a nice bonus too. So now I crafted a bunch of carts, and by crafted I mean I made my carpenter craft them for me. And then I ran around the road area and picked up some copper I spotted before. Speed boost from the road itself was pretty nice to have. With the copper I was now consistently smelting, I decided to make a couple of things. Firstly, a sidearm called an arquebalista. It's basically a gun, and also a slightly better bow and some arrows too. Next, I used my new toys to defeat the owl boss yet again. I decided to farm it to get more feathers for an actual proper bow. I didn't notice it before, but its head explodes first. Kinda funny. After grabbing all the feathers, I ordered myself a feathered bow, which is slightly better and looks cooler too. I also spent some perk points in the character build tree, mostly attack speed and more damage. But apart from that, I grabbed some extra copper and transported it back to the town using my cart train. Having a lot of copper bars will be very relevant soon, because when I combine it with tin, which spawns in the desert, I'll be able to progress further into the bronze equipment. It also seemed like a good idea to unlock the rest of the gods as well. So after sacrificing a bunch of random items, I managed to unlock this guy. So welcome Vulcan, the siege-centric god allowing me to have better walls, bonuses to building health points, and actually automated defense systems. But also I finally noticed that I unlocked Venus, the goddess of beauty, and her perks consist mostly of boosting building appeal and increasing villager happiness. So of course I spent all the worship points I had to buy whatever perks seemed necessary for the time being. Like stone walls, boosts to wood and bread production, or even increased wildlife spawns. And after I felt like I was a bit more prepared, I threw a bunch of materials into my cart and started making my way down south back into the desert. I left the cart outside while I had to deal with the gate guards for good. I needed to clear out this entire thing, otherwise it would be a pain to travel every single time. The biggest threat were the scorpions, so those automatic crossbows that deal pretty serious damage. But I also had to take care of those tents that kept spawning satyrs, so those orange, stronger versions of similar green guys from the forests. After the gate was clear, I moved all the materials.
I think there's... Can I? Is 5? Oh my god, I can have 5, of course.
And began the official construction of my desert outpost. I started by creating the town center right below the gates, and then all the roads to make the layout of the town a bit more organized from the get-go. Then I built my personal house, mostly for protection from the desert enemies, and right after that a house for the villagers, in case I find any unfortunates stranded in this hellhole. But I also brought the tent I got my hands on some time ago and never actually used before. This will set my spawn point in case I ever die out there in the dunes. And to finish off the basics, I built a material storage. The storage. And this small settlement, while still not very impressive, was my ticket to progressing into the bronze gear and defeating whatever boss awaits me here. And so I went into the sands in search of the next super important material, tin. And it took maybe like 10 seconds before I spotted it. It was not hard to find it here, it was pretty much just as common as copper in the plains. So I spent some time defending my cards, which admittedly were getting hit pretty consistently here, and digging out every tin node I could spot, using my trusty spear as the digging tool of choice. And when I managed to fill up the entire cart snake, I followed the main road and came back to my main settlement to smelt all the juicy tin. And now the only thing that was holding me back from making bronze bars was the level of my blacksmith. He was still level 1, and to make bronze I needed him to get at least to level 2. Ha, phew, I spit on you. That's not in the script, I don't know why I did that. So I just forced him to make a ton of nails, using the oldest time Skyrim strategy of spamming the same item to level up smithing. A classic Roman idea. And while he was nailing, I decided to focus on improving the infrastructure of my plains town. I built and upgraded a bunch of roads into their new variants, town stone roads, and they were available from the start, so I'm not sure I'm making them just now. Still, they look much nicer and more intentional. The previous stone roads kind of looked like someone accidentally spilled some cement on the floor. Apart from that, I added a bunch of decorations for the vibes. And finally remodeled the walls so they actually connect properly by using corners. And those were always available as well, so I also don't know why I didn't use them before. But the general building idea was that I would just set up the plans where everything would be built and the carpenter would slowly construct stuff over time, without my direct help. And the best part? I somehow managed to get my hands on an apricot in the desert. No idea when and how, but I did hand it over to the guy who was starving for it for days now. For that he gave me some scarce cargo, which is something I can offer to the gods for XP. And since I was already offering to the gods, I decided to just throw anything I could their way. I wanted to max out the current level of the altar and get all the perks from the gods this way. So I bought out pretty much all the perks currently available, including the ones unlocking olive oil production, honey production, and some bonuses to road speed boosts, which tie nicely to my previous improvements to the road systems. And this was enough for the blacksmith to finally hit level 2. So I made a massive order of all of the bronze bars this man was able to hammer for me. And since I was already in the gearing up mindset, I also ordered myself a cloak from the leather woman, giving me a whopping plus 20 health bonus. And after a moment, I had all the bronze gear I could make right here in my equipment, ready to make me desert biome worthy. And it looked very early Roman too, which I found very exciting. After that I looked through the available quests. I needed to find a granite tooth to progress the main quest further, which I only assumed would be dropped from the next area boss. But before that I accidentally completed a quest for Vulcan, unlocking me automatic Scorpios for defenses. And then I offered some copper ingots to quickly finish up the next Vulcan quest in line, unlocking a quarry. I built it right outside the walls because it looks cooler this way, and set it up in such a way so that it produces stone indefinitely, similarly to how the logging camp works. This way my town would have constant access to the two of most important resources, and the carpenter can just slowly build stuff in peace. And to quickly knock off yet another easy quest, I had to sacrifice 1 denarius to Mercury to unlock a market, which turns out is just 1 silver coin, of which I had tons anyway from killing hordes of enemies. I built the market right beyond the northern gate, it just kinda feels right. And after building it, the stock wasn't anything mind-blowing. However, I did figure out that the constant selling and buying does give the trader NPC a lot of experience, and with each level he sells better stuff. So now after doing pretty much anything but progressing the desert, I finally set out south. I reset my spawn point once again in the desert tent and started exploring the sands. My goal was to find the next main boss of the game. In the process I did do a couple of dungeons, which netted me some fun rewards. And found some interesting locations I have never seen before.
Is that a fort of those guys? Well, I mean, I probably shouldn't be trying to siege a fort right now.
Yes, that was the fort of those orangey tribal guys. I would come back here at a later date, but for now I focused on the task at hand. Because after a long time of searching around, I managed to, by accident, spot a familiar looking statue. And this one not only worked exactly the same as the other ones, pointing me in the direction of the local biome's boss, but it also looked like some sort of a cyclops. So I had a pretty good idea what was to come. I now had to make my way to the High Temple of Satyrs, marked on my map, and clear this place out of the tribal locals. And when all was ready, I entered the dungeon. Here I had to do typical dungeon stuff to unlock the actual boss arena. I had to find 2 keys hidden behind some environmental hazards and bring them to the middle of the dungeon to open up 2 layers of locked doors. I had to first go to the left side and avoid a deadly laser, and getting the first key was a cakewalk. So I brought it back by creating a shortcut by demolishing that stone wall with an explosive jar. After that I had to go to the right side of the dungeon and do some platformer-worthy fireball action. Here I also found a spawner of the potmen, who this time decided to put explosives on their heads. I used that fact to destroy more walls, uncovering loot, like this coin that teleports you back home. Then I created some pathways to progress further with the key, and after that I opened the last door and entered the arena.
That looks like a boss arena, if I've ever seen one. Oh, okay, this type of boss.
This was the Cyclops, and battling him felt more like something out of Binding of Isaac compared to the previous owl boss I fought. Apart from that, I was constrained to a very small arena here, limiting any mobility I had. The first phase was mostly fighting off enemies, avoiding fireballs, and whenever an explosive potman dropped a bomb, I would chuck it right into this guy's eye. When that was done, the second phase introduced more mechanics, like this laser I had to avoid now. So to progress the fight, I had to provide the Cyclops with some high-quality manicure. After lowering his health enough, I entered the third stage. The Cyclops took out his eye and decided to roll it around. A weird tactic for sure, because I had no issues whatsoever stitching his eye with some arrows. And that clearly angered him greatly, because now he entered the fourth stage, which was the first stage in disguise, but harder.
Oh, he's pissed. Sure. I'm really trying. Good thing I played Binding of Isaac before.
And after throwing enough bombs into his eye, we finally entered the final 5th stage. And all I had to do was avoid getting crushed to death.
Oh my god. Okay, I was absolutely not breathing for like the last 15 seconds.
The Cyclops is slain, and I managed to get the granite tooth, not to mention all the other goodies that seemed really powerful, especially the tectonic boots, which were a great upgrade for sure. I used the recently acquired coin to teleport back home, and just like that, I had destroyed 2 out of the available 5 bosses. Now I had to get to the other 3, and so I came back home victorious. I sacrificed the granite tooth to Minerva, and there was that. Completing this main story quest unlocked a couple of interesting things, like a brick oven and the possibility to upgrade certain buildings to level 2. But aside from that, I also unlocked the full tectonic armor set, which is essentially the Cyclops armor, and the shoes I possess already. So crafting it shouldn't be a problem. I just had to get my blacksmith to level 4 now, because that's the only thing I'm lacking at this point. And after that I planted a bunch of trees around my lumberyard, because I must have cut them on accident. And then looked into upgrading the building itself to test out the upgrade mechanic.
Ah, it increases. Okay, so upgrading buildings actually increases the rank that the worker can have.
And to get the lumberyard to level 2, I need to have all the required resources in the nearby materials storage. So instead of bringing the materials to the building themselves, as I foolishly did, I did have to throw everything into that pile. And right after that, without any hammering, the lumberyard just leveled up. And it looks a bit cooler too. So now I started to look into upgrading other buildings and to learn how this whole thing works actually.
Ooh, for Insula, I need bricks. I can upgrade my own house. I do want to upgrade my own house, just because it's not necessary, but I just want it. Ooh, it's so cool. It's very Roman now.
Upgrading my own house made it look not only much more stereotypically Roman, but also made it so much more cozy looking. So I could not stop myself, and I went on a whole quest to make my own home more home-like. So not only did I buy a bunch of new furniture, but I also spent some time literally hunting and gathering materials purely to make a bed, alongside other things. Then I spent a substantial amount of time furnishing the inside of my home. But apart from the inside, also the outside. And apart from that, I also added some proper defenses to my town. I built several Scorpios alongside walls to help repel any potential raids or roaming zombies. Although I probably could have put them on the outside of the walls, but my brain cells didn't put that together until it was too late to change it.
Oh no. I didn't foresee this. Scorpios actually cannot shoot through walls. Oh no. Can I? I can't either. Oh, I don't know why. I thought they can. Oh no.
And to test out my new useless defenses, as well as to complete one more quest that requires me to defend against a raid, I finally used the Declaration of War item I got a long time ago. That item triggered a raid on my town, and all I had to do was defend against it.
And they're coming from north, the only direction where I haven't built any ballistas yet.
Whoops. Scorpios, as predicted, turned out to be pretty useless. But since the enemies in this version of the game seem to be unable to break walls on their own, the raid was just a nuisance more than a threat. Winning against the raid and finishing the quest that unlocked pottery building for me was one thing, but I actually got a very peculiar item that must have dropped from one of the satyrs, and it triggered a hidden quest from Minerva. After sacrificing the item, she marked a location on my map, revealing the third major boss of the game. But the time will come for that too, because now I decided to progress more quests and finish up all the ones I actually can. And I started from the quest from Diana to sacrifice some bronze level bows and arrows. This wasn't too hard since I had more than enough bronze from the last time. I did have to run around for flint though. After offering the items, I finished the quest, and the reward was the ability to upgrade Leatherworker's hut to level 2. Next in line was quest from Venus, and she needed some specific perfume retrieved from a local dungeon. So I went there, styled on all the low tier zombies, and retrieved the item with next to no problems. That quest unlocked a beer dolium for me, which is essentially just a pot to make beer. After that I noticed a quest from Mercury, and he asked me to bring him a traveler's coin, which I had in my possession actually, but also a research paper, an item I have literally never seen before. And which is not exactly a unique item either. It's more like a resource, which slightly confused me as to where to even begin looking for it. So instead of looking for something I have literally zero data about, I decided to finish a quest from Ceres, which was literally just a cook me some cool meals bro kinda quest. So I decided to start with the scorpion skewers, and to even begin thinking about cooking those I needed honey production. So I unlocked beehives from one of the Ceres' perks, and to make them I needed one queen bee item per beehive. So I went out into the wilds, and while the video doesn't do it justice, I actually almost lost my mind looking for them. And after a lot, and I mean a lot of trial and error, it turns out that queen bees can be found in those very specific fallen tree trunks. You can even kind of see a beehive inside of them.
Sure. And now I'm finding 2 in a row. Why is it always like this?
So I came back to the carpenter and ordered myself 2 mug beehives, and then put them right above my personal farm. Well, at least the villagers seemed to be excited at the prospect of having honey, so now the bees were slowly producing it. And when I had enough, I brought all the raw honey and cooked it into the other kind of honey. So now that is done. Now I need apricots, scorpion meat and some coriander, and all of those can be found in the desert. So I traveled half a world again to grab some of those artisan ingredients like some sort of a Roman Willy Wonka. I grabbed coriander, which was just free growing everywhere, and I somehow never picked it up before. I grabbed some apricots from an apricot tree, and I grabbed some scorpion meat from scorpion meat dispensers. And now I was able to craft 2 scorpion skewers for a Gordon Ramsay level of offering to Ceres. Now I had to focus on the next recipe. Moretum and bread. Moretum being the slightly harder part. I already had all the ingredients on me, but I still needed to find olive oil, which didn't take long. It was hidden in the materials storage. So now I made 2 Moretum and breads and sacrificed them in the name of Ceres, unlocking me some sort of a fish processing building. Alright, that was enough of questing for me already. I still had 2 side quests, one of which was undoable for me since I had no idea where to find research paper, and the other was from Venus asking me to bring some musical instruments and grapes. And there will be time and place for that too. I decided that the best thing to do now is build all the newly unlocked buildings and upgrades, and I had quite a bit of them now. I planned 1 olive dolium and 1 beer dolium right outside the city's walls, the pottery shop right next to the carpenters, and a clay pit north from the town next to the clay deposits to produce clay. And then I spent some time putting it all together into one beautifully improved townscape. Now thanks to the doliums I was able to produce my own olive oil and beer, and thanks to the pottery shop I was able to make some more decorations to put around the city. But now I built one more very important thing, a brick oven. Here I could use the clay that was now coming in indefinitely from the clay pits and cook it into bricks. Although for some reason I was doing it manually for most of the time, but yes, you can actually make it automatic too. But yeah, I have bricks now, which will be important for upgrading buildings later. But now, after reaping the harvest of my questing, I was finally ready. Time to pay a visit to the third boss of the game, and he is yet again in the desert. Or more specifically, in the desert fort I found earlier. I guess time for a little siege. But before that I quickly built a little food storage for my desert village people. I completely forgot about them, and apparently they are all just kind of starving here. So I had to put some food in their little desert fridge. But after that was done, I continued moving forward to that fort. And just like last time, I was met with a constant avalanche of catapult bombs aimed right at my bronze helmet. This time I did use 100% of my small brain though, and baited the catapults to cripple their own wooden walls for me. And when the opening was created, I took over their defenses and used the catapult against them and their tents. I continued alongside the walls, destroying everything in my path and using all the environmental help I could get. After carving my way through the fort, I managed to reach the main square, where I pulled a lever opening the doors to the boss's dungeon. Here I entered the inside of the fort, where I was welcomed by an unarmed satyr. He told me that their leader is awaiting me, and will surely get my Roman cheeks clapped with ease. I followed the corridor and entered the arena, while the man himself, the leader of the satyrs, was sitting and awaiting my move. The first stage of the fight was mostly him spinning around and jumping, dealing pretty decent damage. But so was I, dealing pretty decent damage whenever he was getting spinny from his attacks, getting in a couple of sucker stabs each time. The problems started during the second stage of the fight, around half health mark. That's when the man was sending a massive amount of fireballs my way, and it felt like I wasn't fast enough to outrun them all. I ran out of stamina. How did I defeat Cyclops and I couldn't defeat this fatty? I ran back to the fort and attempted the fight again. I went through the initial first phase quite smoothly yet again, and this time somehow I barely survived the second projectile-based phase. Now it was time for phase 3, where he turned red from anger and repeated phase 1 more angrily. Not to mention all the stuff I had to avoid being thrown from the seats, fire explosions and the overall chaos. And yet again I failed because I got overwhelmed. Why is this guy in a cart? I came back once again, sped through the first phase, and this time managed to finish the projectile phase without getting hit so much, and with much healthier HP pool. After that I progressed into the phase 3, and managed to kite him throughout the entire fight without being overwhelmed by numbers. I approached this fight like the Binding of Isaac bosses, waiting for his moves before spamming my own. And that crazy complex strategy turned the corner on this boss fight, and I managed to pop this fatty while almost dying to fire. And the loot was alright. I got a cape that spins blades around me when I dash, and that was kind of the main thing. Apart from the satisfaction that the throne is now empty. I came back to the desert town and decided that I probably owe the people living here something in return for forgetting about, feeding them. So I started expanding this town thoroughly, including building a farmstead. Technically it is a desert biome, so wheat does not grow here, but I will probably figure something out since there's plenty of biome-specific crops, like grapes. Apart from that, I just spent time building and developing this poor town. The biggest downside of settling in the desert is lack of wood, since pretty much no trees here drop logs. I had to do a couple of wood runs to the nearest plains and forest biomes to grab it every time I needed it. But after putting in some work, I managed to build all the essentials to make this town more or less self-sufficient for the time being, ranging from a simple quarry for stone and tin to a carpenter's shop for automated building. I also connected everything using their own logistics tent. After that, I decided that in a biome as dangerous as this one, it is absolutely necessary to have proper walls. The only difference being this time I built the stone version, which somewhat fit the desert theme much better anyway. And apart from that, I also added 2 Scorpios right outside the gates, and turns out they are quite effective if you put them in the right spot. In the following days, I finished up the rest of the roads and walls, and the settlement was pretty much ready to handle itself for the time being. But apart from that, I also got a bunch of points in my character traits too, since building and fighting so much did net me a few. I directed my build mostly towards spear proficiency, adding little abilities like a dash attack. And with that out of the way, I came back to my plains village. My blacksmith was still not level 4, so I made him craft a bunch of arrows to level him up. Soon enough, he was finally able to craft me that tectonic armor set, as well as a weapon I wanted to try out for some time now. A mole. Ignoring my spear perks, I guess. And while the blacksmith was crafting all that, I bought up most of the available tier 1 perks from all the gods, like Dolium speed increases and decorations. All gods but Vulcan. I didn't vibe well with his defense perks, given how easy it is to cheese raids. Soon after that, I finally had the almost full tectonic armor on me. And this one really felt powerful given how much more health I got, not to mention the satisfying fighting style of the mole. There was one problem problem though. I actually forgot to make tectonic boots. For some reason I thought I already had them on me from some boss drops, but they were actually just bronze greaves. So I made my way back into the Cyclops' lair and literally just kind of farmed him real quick. A small break for killing a demigod to get me some sandals, you know. After grabbing all the materials, I finally was able to afford my shoes. And now I truly have the full tectonic set equipped. I sacrificed all my old armor sets to the gods and finally felt bad enough that I even bought out all the perks from Vulcan. He kind of just had this sad look in his eyes, so I just did it for him. After that I made a bunch of bricks using the new brick oven and upgraded a bunch of buildings, like insulas that can now house up to 5 citizens and look more city-like, but also upgraded the leatherworker's hut and carpenter to level 2. And just to feel special, I removed all wooden walls and replaced them with the stone variant, mostly because they look more serious. The town's carpenter will slowly build them over time too, so I don't really have to do anything. And since I was already upgrading everything around, I looked into upgrading the blacksmith hut to level 2. And apparently there's literally a quest unlocking that very upgrade, which I thought was pretty lucky. Upgrading it to level 2 will enable my blacksmith to go beyond job level 4, which will let him craft the currently most powerful set of items in the game, the Iron Tier Legionary Armor, Weapons and Tools. For that I need to go back into the desert and mine more tin, since I was all out of bronze, which was necessary for the quest. To make sure that I don't run out of tin in the nearest future, I actually spent a good chunk of time here, mining tin and filling up 9 carts in total, split in 3 groups for each tin run. And when I combined them all, it was actually quite fun to pretend to be an ancient Roman train. And at home I smelted all of it manually. Manually told my blacksmith to spend hours of his life banging his hammer on the table to make bars, and then manually made the bronze armor sets to sacrifice to Vulcan and finish the quest. Thanks to that I immediately upgraded the blacksmith building. But actually no, I didn't. For that I needed 10 bricks in the material storage, and my current max capacity was 5. That's when I discovered that material storage can also be upgraded, which in hindsight is pretty logical. So now after upgrading it I could store so much more. Thanks to that I upgraded the blacksmith building to level 2 no problem. The legionary armor will be mine soon. The blacksmith just has to spam the bronze bars now forever until he reaches level 5. And apart from that I need to find some iron too. But another thing I discovered is that I actually never upgraded the altar, which just as the material storage I never assumed can be upgraded for some reason. That's why there is so many locked perks for pretty much every god. So I upgraded it, which was extremely easy and literally 2 clicks away since probably forever. Now visually it has 2 little plants on it, but probably more importantly I unlocked the higher tier god perks that are now available for me to purchase. For instance, Farmstead can now use wells to automatically water the crops, and I had no idea that wasn't happening already. That whole thing led to my sacrifice spree. I threw a lot of things the Pantheon's way, but in return I was able to afford really powerful perks, like literal teleportation between 2 level 2 altars. I had no idea that's a thing. So when I made my way down south for the last time using my own 2 feet and upgraded the altar there to level 2, I was shocked how convenient teleportation actually is. No more running between settlements, I guess. I used to run for days. And the newly founded teleport network finally let me properly finish off the desert biome. The goal was to spend a couple of days just raiding dungeons and all kinds of structures to find as much loot as possible, which then could in turn be offered to the gods for worship points to buy out some more good perks. And I did so much raiding in fact that I even made a whole production line for olive oil, which let me cook a bunch of cool things, increasing my critical strike chance. But apart from that, I also upgraded some buildings thanks to the perk unlocks, like Farmstead level 2 or Altar level 3.
Ooh, that looks kinda nice actually.
The dungeon raiding let me explore quite a bit of the map too, but there was one thing that still was driving me completely nuts out of curiosity. This weird patch of corrupted grass I found some time ago. So since I explored pretty much all that plains, forest and the desert biomes had to offer, I departed on an expedition to search for the last available biome in the game. After a while of running north, I managed to get to the burned road, because apparently that's what it is. And following it was the only lead into the next biome I had. And so I continued exploring.
What is this? Ow.
And fighting new enemies. And after enough running to the right, I finally got to the place. The volcano biome. And as it turns out, it is a freakishly hostile working environment.
Oh no. This might be a bit much, actually. Well, okay. I mean, at least I know where it is, right?
I decided that I need to properly prepare to manage the fire damage from the enemies there. So I looked into cooking up some patina de malis, which gives buffs to fire resistance, which I felt would be crucial to my survival there. So I upgraded the bakery and built a garum dolium to now continuously make the fish garum, which is necessary for the dish. Wine dolium was the next step, and to get it I had to finish a quest from Venus, which wasn't exactly hard since I sacrificed most of what she asks anyway during my dungeon runs. So I constructed the winemaker next to the fish garum one, and since grapes are constantly being produced in my desert village, I had no issues making as much wine as I needed for the fire resistance dish. But yeah, grapes had to be milled into paste first. That took me a moment to realize. After that I gathered some apples and planted a bunch of apple trees next to my plains town, so I never have to look for them too far. And now the last ingredients. Eggs. And surprisingly, the only way to get eggs is by killing vultures in the desert, which turned out to be a bit annoying to do since they tend to prioritize fighting anyone but me.
Oh no. Why is he running away? Come on. How is that? They never run away this far.
So now, having all the ingredients, I was finally able to make a couple of the fire resistance dishes. And when they were all ready, I departed once more towards north. I found the burned road yet again, and right at the verge of the volcano biome I set up a small camp, to make sure I won't die and respawn half a world away again. Then I ate the entire Italian dish I prepared to fight off the flames, and entered the volcanic biome with high hopes. The fiery enemies here were pretty durable, but the fire resistance helped me get through to my lost items. After that, I explored all the local ruins and raided some chests. And the best part is, I even found the elusive item necessary for Mercury's questline.
Is that a... I found research paper. I found research paper.
And apart from that and some chest loot, I also stumbled upon this, the iron ore. Unfortunately, I had no cart with me, and the pressure from the enemies here was insane. I came back to the camp and I decided that this place is difficult enough to deserve a proper outpost, where I can chill out between exploration missions. So I built a town center and an altar level 2 for teleportation and quests. Then I sacrificed the research papers for the Mercury's quest, which concluded the last of the side missions available to me. There is only one quest left, which I can only assume is a boss quest done in the volcanic biome, but I had no idea what kind of hell awaits me just yet. After that I built all the most important buildings, plus some defense scorpions since volcano biome creatures are no joke. And now I had a small outpost to call a very distant, ugly and dangerous home. So now I teleported back to the plains and stole some carts. Then slowly transported them to the volcano village, although that was a problem in itself since wooden carts are very fragile. But at least now I was able to sporadically find some iron and transport it back to the village the old-fashioned way. So now I was mostly looking for iron nodes, which even here, in its native biome, seemed extremely rare to spot. I did get an iron maul from a chest though, so that's always a nice free upgrade, even with debuffs to minus 25% damage. Still dealt more than the tectonic one though. After filling up most of the carts with iron, I spent the entire night traveling back to the plains, since that's where the forge is. I wasn't sure if iron can be smelted in a regular forge, but it worked. And apparently it can only be smelted in a blacksmith's hut level 2, so I just got kind of lucky there. Still, my blacksmith wasn't even close to level 5 somehow, so I could not make the legionary armor just yet. So while he's leveling up, I decided to just quickly build a university. No biggie. Here you can research stuff using the research papers as currency, and that's all it can do. I guess I unlocked it by finishing that last Mercury's quest, but I had no idea how important that building is just yet. After that I came back to the volcano biome to explore more, and despite me trying my hardest, I kept almost dying pretty much all the time.
I keep almost dying. Like, it is really hard here. Oh no 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 no. No man, let me eat my bread.
To escape from certain death I decided to hide in one of the dungeons, and that one is a big one. Progressing through this dungeon took me a lot of time, and it was more elaborate than anything I did so far. From environmental puzzles with levers, to traps and lasers constantly being a threat. Not to mention new enemies like little baby Cyclops engineers.
Oh no, they're going after me. Oh, okay, they are slightly more fragile than I thought.
And I'm mentioning this dungeon only because I spent a ton of time trying to figure out how to get all the hidden chests here. And I must have spent like literal days here, as embarrassing as it sounds.
Unless I can just smelt it here? Oh, I think I can just manually smelt it here. Oh, that is so much better.
It just kind of is hard, you know? I had to put all the levers in the correct positions, but turning a lever turns all of them in the whole dungeon, and it just kind of messed with my head a lot. I did ultimately kind of give up and force my way through by just running into fire to get the last chest instead of doing it correctly. Not my proudest moment, but it somehow worked and I did finish the dungeon fully. After that I did some more easier dungeons to get even more iron bars, and dug out some raw iron too, which I was smelting in the Plains village, up until the point of having 30 iron bars, which should be enough for the entire armor and all the weapons. Unfortunately, the blacksmith is still not a level 5. And getting there is very slow. So instead I decided to test out a new building I got from some university research. A trading post. I built one in each village. One in the plains, one in the desert, and one in the volcano biome. Although Volcano Village also got some walls, since they seem to need them the most. And after that I started figuring out the trade between settlements, which actually was a nice way to transport materials without the need of carts. I could basically send any item or resource, and a little guy working in the trade post would just bring it to whichever village I want. Meaning that Volcano Village can get a lot of resources from the more established settlements for free. And now, coming back to the blacksmith, I decided to manually bring some copper ore to the city, and then make this guy smith a metric ton of bronze pillums, purely for experience. All while I put some more decorations around the plains town, to kill some time, you know? It still surprises me how in-depth it is. Making my own Roman town is really a cool thing to do. But after a minute or two, blacksmith got to level 5, and I immediately ordered myself a full legionary set. Although tools and weapons are a bit more problematic, since they require iron rods as one of the ingredients, inflating the cost of iron bars. In short, I didn't have enough iron bars to make everything anymore. And the iron rods had their own recipe, which required cinder cloth made from flowers found in the volcano biome. But at least I have the legionary armor, which not only looks cool in a stereotypical Roman way, but also is incredibly durable. So now I just kind of run around picking up flowers near the volcano. Those pink ones are what I'm after. And then I use them to make the cinder cloth at the leather maker. Then I crafted a bunch of iron rods, and just to come back to my roots, I decided to make an iron spear and a shield, to finally start preparing for the last 2 bosses of the game. It was already day 100, but I decided to keep going anyway. I was determined to find the lair of the first volcano boss, so I ventured deep into the biome itself, finding even more crazy enemies like those huge robots. They did turn out to be pretty easy to fight though, and after some time looking around I found a familiar looking statue, which required me to make a fire right next to it. This way I uncovered the Temple of Vulcan, the place where my biggest fight yet would unfold. So in the Plains town I used the university to research mead production, unlocking a mead dolium. Then I made as much mead using honey as possible, since that thing restores 90 health per use. And I knew I will need a lot of regeneration for the endgame bosses. After that I started making my way deep into the volcanic biome to find the temple, and before long I managed to get to the place, which looked very temple-y indeed. Unfortunately, the temple was closed, and the sign next to it said that to open it you need to subscribe to my channel. But actually I'm lying, it said I need to perform some kind of craftsmanship offering. So now I ran around the vicinity of the temple and I found a broken lever, which needed me to use an iron rod on it to fix it. I assumed there would be more of those, so I ran around and managed to find 2 more in a quick succession. And after some more searching, the last 4th one, which happens to be the hardest to find for some reason, because the gods of this game hate me. After fixing all of them, a huge ancient vase appeared right next to the temple, and destroying it released the spirit of Vulcan, who invited me to talk with him in an altar. Here he explained that to unlock the temple, I would need to bring the materials required to build a specific building right in front of it. I assumed it was probably randomized, but for me specifically, it was the clay pit building. So I made a bunch of bronze carts now. Those have much more HP and should survive the volcanic biome enemies more easily. And then I filled them up with all the necessary materials and started making my way back to the temple in the heart of the volcano. And I really tried not to drop anything by accident, because this on its own was extremely time consuming to assemble. I brought everything in front of the temple and unloaded the carts. And then, nothing. Turns out I somehow lost one piece of wood on my way, so I had to bring it by hand. But after that was done, the gates to the Temple of Vulcan were opened. The inside played out like a typical volcano difficulty dungeon. A lot of fire-related traps, a lot of lasers, and an absolute metric ton of hard enemies to get through. But after I managed to do all of that, I finally entered the proper boss arena.
Well, I feel like this is the boss fight, right? Has to be.
This is the Talos prototype, which is supposed to be the last main boss of the game, but for me it's the second to last. And the boss fight is filled to the brim with specific mechanics and an absolute and overwhelming chaos. The goal is to deal damage to the boss through the 4 plates on its chest, and the damage is dealt only when the exterior armor is destroyed and the weak points glow blue inside. But it is easier said than done, given the platforms that spawn enemies and items, lasers and automatic turrets that keep respawning on the sides of the arena. And considering all that, I quickly got overwhelmed and outnumbered already on phase 1. Second attempt fared slightly better though. I managed to deal enough damage to the boss that I actually progressed to the second phase, which floods the map with stationary lasers, denying a lot of space for movement. And all while the platform spawn rates are increased. More enemies and more junk that just takes up space. So unfortunately I got unlucky with enemy spawns and I got absolutely obliterated by a fire mage. On the third attempt I managed to get through the second phase better by adopting a great tactic of throwing rocks at the turrets, since they seemed to take a lot more damage from thrown objects. This way I managed to get to phase 3, which is when the arena is taken over by rotating lasers. The goal was to take cover around the pillars and pull the levers which spawn scorpions. Defeating the scorpions was the goal, and it actually is pretty easy, so that phase was finished quite fast. After that, phase 4, which similarly to Cyclops' fight is just a more aggressive phase 1. Unfortunately, I somehow managed to get stuck behind the lasers, which sucked and ended my run. Then there was the fourth try, where I started to notice that maybe I am just too weak for this boss fight altogether. It seemed that I am unable to keep my health at a decent level, and I also deal ever so slightly too little damage for comfort. So I decided to do something I don't usually do. I retreated and decided to quickly get stronger. I came back to the volcanic village where I met a random man who appeared at my village to give me a quest to kill the Phoenix of Arabia, the last boss. But that's random and not exactly important yet. So I went back to the Plains town, and here at the university I noticed I have a new scroll which I haven't seen before. And this one is a magical scroll which can literally spam healing whenever I have enough stamina to spend. And apparently I got it from one of the perks from Mercury's tree, which is literally a lifesaver. All of a sudden I don't have to rely on a slow eating animation to heal. And apart from that I also made myself a bulwark chest armor, which is an armor I got a recipe for from some volcanic dungeons, and it is quite a bit better than the Iron Legionary one. But apart from that I also made myself an iron pickaxe, since apparently Talos' armor takes predominantly mining damage specifically, so that should help with breaking the plates easier. And after acquiring all those upgrades I finally made my final march to the Temple of Vulcan, and I started the fight yet again. And this time without any problems I completed the first stage pretty quickly, then the second stage with the laser ground denial, and then I progressed through the third stage, which is still quite easy actually. But then the fourth stage, where I was sitting mostly on one side of the arena, making sure that I have enough safe space to always be ready to attack the weak points, and never letting the turrets and enemies overwhelm me by prioritizing them. And that's when I finally pushed the spear through Talos' metal heart for the last time.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, I did it! That took like 6 or 7 tries. A great chest appeared right before me, and inside, the last main quest item of Romestead, the core vessel. I came back to the Plains town and sacrificed it to the gods, finishing the last main quest given to me by Minerva. But I had one more prize to catch, the last boss of the game, and the last quest I possess. So I made my way to the Scorched Shrine and destroyed it with my iron spear. That spawned the Great Phoenix, which in all regards was much easier to deal with than Talos. This was basically the owl fight all over again, but fire themed. It didn't take long for me to dispatch this bird and become the only avian themed badass in these lands. After finishing the boss and taking all the loot from him, including some sick bow, I came back to the guy who gave me the quest and marked the boss's location and finished the quest. And this made my quest log absolutely squeaky clean. Thank you all for watching. I hope you had a great time and I will see you next time. Glory to Rome and bye bye.